November the 19th, 2023. Guys, I hope everyone's had a great weekend. It's been beautiful here in the South, central Mississippi. Last few days, get up into the 60s, 40s, and 50s at night. You really can't beat it after this extreme heat wave that we witnessed this past summer. It was incredible. Let me ask you guys a question. Say something in the comments as you watch it. Especially if you're in one of these drought-ridden areas. But look at Louisiana and Mississippi here. Normally, this is Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. Everything's drifted to the east. Check this out. Now, Iowa has reported that they have a lot of water wells going dry because of this drought. They're 15 inches below normal for the year, but it's been 3 years in a row. And the measurements now go back as far as 18 in the 90s, whenever the Dust Bowl, guys, somebody looked that up, the Great Dust Bowl. But the records go back to there, and they haven't, and it wasn't this dry then. Just think about that. But how many of you have noticed that your yard is completely dried up? Now, I'm talking to folks in these red areas, and if you look, D4 right here, the dark maroon, is exceptional. That's the worst, the highest category. Red is extreme, orange is severe, D1 kind of in the skin color moderate drought, yellow is abnormally dry, and then none. So you've got kind of quite a change across the nation. But again, Iowa has reported that their wells are running dry. So how many of you have seen your yards dry up, your gardens dry up? And guys, to be honest with you, now I know we got a lot of dogs, but it's dust here. I mentioned Dust Bowl. That's how it occurred. Now, it got worse because so many farmers back then mass cultivated and didn't even leave the tree lines along the fences. And that really helped the winds pick everything up. So they're trying to be more careful now. But, guys, we're running very low on water. You've seen the reports in the Mississippi River. You're looking at that. That's down in the D4 exceptional drought area. Salt water's moving in. So if you're looking at your ground or your grass drying, that's kind of common. But how many of you are seeing these 50, 60-year-old pine trees dying out? It's kind of like a pine beetle infestation, except on my property here, we have about 9 acres of old, very old trees that there's no pine beetle markings. In other words, if you have pine beetles coming in, and we've had them twice, once after Katrina, once after that, you'll have like small sawdust around the bottom where these pine beetles are working into the trees. Now, I haven't found that yet, but what concerns me is that these tall trees are dying off, and Iowa's running out of water. So what does that tell you? How deep do the roots go in these 60, 70-year-old trees? And how deep is your water systems? In other words, you got a water tank in your county or in your city, one of these big tanks you see, and they pump it up out of the ground, and the pressure in that tank dispenses it everywhere it needs to go. We have one here. Matter of fact, we had the one before we have now was on my property, and my property's so high that they didn't need the legs on the tank. I think we're one of the highest elevations, about 340-something feet above sea level here. But we had it on our property. Then that 20, 30 years ago, that dried up, and they moved it to maybe 3 or 4 miles from here and put up one of the tall tanks. But, guys, if the trees are dying, our lower level water systems are in very big trouble. I've heard the stories about their gardens drying up and their yards and trees and bushes and the heat. And it affects everything, wildlife, of course, agricultural. But if you look at this map, this is very unusual. And what does the Bible tell us? That men will be scorched with heat. God said, I will not bring another flood, but there will be heat this time. And this is the worst summer, guys, and I'm old, that I've ever seen. And I've been in this area you're looking at most of my life and never seen anything like it. And I talk to people on a daily basis up at the tractor supply where we get our diesel for the tractor and seeds and things like that, and dog food. That I've talked to those guys up there, and they've never seen anything like it either. But we are actually looking at a great drought starting. If it affects us here in South Louisiana, the southern sections of it are swamp. You got the Mississippi River coming through there. Remember the videos back when Corn Bayou or Bayou Corn was sinking into that big salt dome. Everything's water in a lot of places. And the Mississippi River's so dry now that water's coming up through it, salt water, and giving those people trouble with their water also. Again, we are facing biblical times, guys. But again, let me know in the comments, are you, especially here in the southeast, I know that's where it's the worst at, but look over New Mexico and southeastern Arizona, and then up into Iowa and some other places north. And if you look at it, the red is extreme drought, and that goes all the way through the Florida Panhandle into southwestern Georgia, goes up through northwestern Alabama, through much of Tennessee. And if you look at Tennessee and northern Mississippi, you also have the maroon D4 exceptional drought markings. But this goes into the Carolinas for my friends there. It goes up into Virginia. Look around. Look all the way up into the very northwest corner. Now, that's a D3 extreme drought situation. But, guys, I've never seen what we're seeing now, and it's nothing to me but biblical. Now, how do you replace water? You really can't. I've said it before. I remember in elementary school when you actually had intelligent teaching in science that when you have a situation that you cannot live with or the environment becomes that way, you migrate, you adapt, or you die. Now, migration is going to be very hard because of the situation on the southern borders for anyone. Everything's being filled up, and everyone wants to die on their own hill, if you understand what I'm saying. You've circled your wagons. You've decided to stock up on your food, on your water, and everything else that you need, and hang in there right there. And a lot of you guys, especially in our areas, are not in the cities. So you're very aware of the situation. But when water becomes unavailable, what do? At first, there'll be places you can get it, lakes and streams that aren't too bad, but you're going to need some good water filtration. And you know, guys, that this is not a video about that, but we do sell the world's #1 water filter that you can bug out with on bpearthwash.com. Again, that has nothing to do with this video. When I'm seeing what I'm looking at on this map, and I'm looking out and I've got dozens of giant trees dying, I'm talking about browned out, and then you go down the highway and you see it continuing in this entire area. Something's up. Wars, rumors of wars. And in Revelation, men will curse God for the drought and the heat. And I read a report today in South America. If I can find it, I'll put it up in a video tomorrow. But it was a Taylor Swift, who I don't listen to. I can't remember a song she ever made, but it's always on the headlines. But she was doing a South American tour. It was at night, and the temperature had reached over 140 degrees. People were dropping like flies. One lady died. Hundreds had to be either hospitalized or ambulances coming in and treating them. 146 degrees. Can you imagine that at night? God said, I will not flood you again. But he mentioned several times, I will burn up the elements. And those elements that are being burned up, if you look at the true translation, it is the more or less evil elements that will be burned up. But a lot of things will go along with that in order for God to do what he's doing. Everything is natural, and God is supernatural, which means more natural. It's not some kind of witchery or sorcery. It's just more natural. What does that mean? He uses the weather. Sure, it's manipulated in certain areas in certain times, and we've known that forever. But the Bible is much older than newer technology that we have now to manipulate the weather. And they're telling us that. Of course, we understand about prophecy and that some of it is being used as a playbook at this time. I'm not saying the prophecy was wrong at all. I'm just saying sometimes people, like in the wars and rumors of wars, they take advantage of that. Netanyahu came out today and took advantage of it in what I consider a very stupid statement. But they seem to be desperate. And the more desperate they become, all the world leaders, the more stupid they become because they're not thinking they're desperate. They are panicking, so you don't think straight. But I've gone on long enough about this. I just would like to hear in your comments, guys, and everyone anywhere in the world, come on here and comment and let us look at the world situation on these drought conditions and the lack of water. And we're going to see where we are at in prophecy. But God bless every one of you. This is a heads up. Be safe.